Welcome to the global news on September 28th in 2021. Today we start in Berlin in Germany because of the general election. After the election on Sunday, it remains to be seen who will provide the future government. According to the results, it would theoretically be enough for a new edition of the Grand Coalition. A three-way alliance is more likely though, but the situation has become a little bit clearer. A few weeks ago, there was a talk of up to 5 possible three-way variants. Now there are only 2 or 3. The Social Democrats and the Greens are largely pulling together on many issues, such as the wealth tax or the easing of the debt brake. However, it would take some effort for the Liberals to govern with the Greens and Social Democrats. Their boss, Christian Lindner, says the goal is to prevent a left shift in politics with higher taxes. But he does not rule out a Trafficlight Coalition, as we call it, from the red, green and yellow. The FDP would charge a very high price for it, such as the post of Federal Minister of Finance. In this constellation, it would be the Greens who would have to overcome a lot. After all, there's a lot of overlap between the CDU-CSU and the FDP. They could try to slow down the Greens and their climate and social policy, for example. Jamaica, that's another coalition where black, green and yellow, is burdened with a heavy mortgage. In 2017, the negotiations on such an alliance crashed because the Liberals broke them at the last minute. FDP, so Liberal Party leader Christian Lindner, can hardly afford to pinch again, but the substantive differences with the Greens remain, especially because they also want to hold industry accountable when it comes to climate protection. However, there is an example of a functioning Jamaica alliance. In Schleswig-Holstein, that's a German state. There are no insurmountable hurdles between the previous coalition partners, but the SPD in particular has little inclination to reissue the unloved alliance with the Union. The new Grand Coalition infusion is not completely excluded. It could happen if the Greens and the Liberals get stuck in the negotiations and no alliance is formed with both parties. But the Social Democrats and the Greens do not agree on everything either. SPD Chancellor candidate Olaf Scholz does not want to commit to an earlier coal exit than 2038. There is currently an example of a functioning Trafficlight Coalition at state level as well, by the way, in Rhineland-Palatinate. So it stays quite exciting for months, I'm sure. But now let's go to Sardinia in Italy. The former Prime Minister of the Spanish region of Catalonia, Charles Puigdemont, has promised to appear at a court hearing on October 4th in Sardinia. This was assured by his lawyer Gonzalo Boye on Saturday in an interview with the Spanish newspaper La Vanguardia. Zero risk, this process is dead, the newspaper quoted Boye as saying. The 58-year-old Puigdemont was arrested on Thursday on the Italian Mediterranean island on account of a Spanish arrest warrant and was released unconditionally a day later. A judge in the city of Sassari ordered Puigdemont to appear for a hearing. The question then arises as to whether Puigdemont has to be transferred to Spain. The Spanish judiciary is accusing Puigdemont of the illegal independence referendum of October 2017 and the failed attempt to split off Catalonia from Spain and of rebellion. At the time, he was regional head of government in Barcelona. The separatists have not come any closer to the goal of independence for Catalonia. Puigdemont fled abroad in good time in autumn 2017. Those of his fellow campaigners at the time who did not were sentenced to between 9 and 13 years in prison, but they were pardoned last June. And now we have to go to Moscow in Russia. Around a week after the Russian parliamentary elections, which were quite overshadowed by allegations of fraud, Kremlin chief Vladimir Putin praised the vote as free and fair. He said, "The elections themselves were open and in strict accordance with the law." He said that on Saturday in a conversation with top politicians from all parties represented in the new State Duma. Almost at the same time, hundreds of people protested in the capital Moscow against the result, which they believe to have been manipulated. The communists called for the unauthorized rally in the central Pushkin Square, who took second place behind the Kremlin party, United Russia with 18.9% of the vote. The MPs demanded, among other things, a recount of the votes cast online. According to the opinion of the opposition, these have been systematically falsified. Among the demonstrators were some people holding up posters in support of the imprisoned Kremlin opponent Alexei Navalny. A large number of police and prisoner transports were on site around Pushkin Square. Unlike the large Navalny protests at the beginning of the year, this time there were no reports of arrests during the action. According to the civil rights portal OWD Info, however, a participant was later arrested near Red Square. The Moscow police put the number of participants at 400, while independent observers spoke of around 1,000 demonstrators. So the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. The Communist Party leader Gennady Zyuganov did not attend the rally. He attended the meeting with Putin. Like all parties represented in the Duma, the communists are considered to be quite loyal to the Kremlin. Putin emphasized in the conversation, which was held in a video format, that it testifies to a democratic electoral process that, for the first time in many years, the Novye Yudi, the New People Party, has made it over the 5% hurdle. As before, the Kremlin Party United Russia, the Communists, the right-wing populists of the LDPR, and the Just Russia Party are represented in the 450-seat parliament. The three-day vote last weekend was also seen as a mood test for Putin with a view to the 2024 presidential election. The 68-year-old now congratulated the Kremlin Party in particular, which supported his cause and which had proven, as he said, that it still is a leader. Despite losses, United Russia was able to defend the absolute majority in the Duma with 49.8% of the vote, according to the official figures. Putin dismissed the allegations of fraud, especially with regard to votes cast online. The reservations about e-voting only arose because someone did not like the result, he said. Opposition and independent election observers, on the other hand, they are convinced that the outcome of the election was systematically manipulated. In particular, as I said, the handling of the online votes of Moscow voters has sparked a lot of discussion. Their results were published late, and they influenced the final result in favor of United Russia. And we go to another election in Graz in Austria. In the Austrian city of Graz, the communist KPÖ apparently won the municipal council elections. This is reported by several Austrian media. According to the initial projections, the KPÖ comes to 29% and thus increases by almost 9 percentage points. The conservative ÖVP, on the other hand, fell by 12 points to around 25%. The result is actually more than surprising to that extent, said KPÖ top candidate Elke K. to Austrian television. The previously incumbent mayor of the ÖVP, Siegfried Nagel, was shocked in an initial reaction. He said, "We all have to digest it first." He was mayor of the city for almost 19 years. Graz would be the first city in Austria in which the KPÖ has a mayor. Elke K. was open to working with several parties, she said, including the ÖVP. And it was quite an election special day today, I must say. There will be other politics soon again, but it was important. And the federal election, I experienced that, of course, the vote count and all this stuff and the publishing of the votes is always so exciting. If you want to see something from that night here in Münster, where I was spending my election night, there are 2 short videos on my Instagram. If you are interested, just have a look. I'll see you on my next video. Bis gleich.